I told my mother-in-law if she keeps rearranging my kitchen, she can get a hotel room. So I'm 6'6". My husband is 5'7". When we got married 3 years ago, we had to figure out how our kitchen would work because his whole family is short, and I'm basically a giant. We tried it their way for like 2 weeks, where everything was at normal height, and I was crouching constantly to grab plates and pans. My back was killing me. So we moved everything up higher and got him a step stool. Problem solved. He didn't care. I wasn't in pain anymore, and we moved on with our lives. Then, my mother-in-law's roof started leaking 2 weeks ago. Big leak needs serious repairs, and she needed a place to stay. My husband and I have a spare bedroom. His sister, who's also my best friend, lives in a 1-bedroom apartment, so obviously she came to stay with us. Day 1, I noticed my spice rack was lower. I didn't say anything because maybe I moved it and forgot. Day 2, the plates were on a lower shelf. I asked my husband if he moved them, and he said no. Day 3, I watched her move my drinking glasses down while I was getting the mail. I came back inside, and she was putting them in a cabinet that was basically at her chest level. For me, that's knee level. I asked her why she moved them, and she said it was ridiculous to keep things so high up when guests might need them. I told her we don't really have guests, and that I need things where they are. She did this little laugh and said she'd just been trying to help make the kitchen make more sense. My husband talked to her that night. He told her to stop moving stuff around. She cried a little and said she felt like we were being unwelcoming. He said that wasn't it, but the kitchen was set up for us and she needed to leave it alone. She agreed. Next morning, the mugs were moved. I opened the cabinet where we keep them, and they weren't there. I checked 3 other cabinets before I found them in the cabinet under the counter. The one where we used to keep pots before we moved those up too. I had to get on my knees on the kitchen floor to pull out a mug. My back hurt immediately. That sharp pain you get when you bend wrong. I made my coffee and didn't say anything because my husband had already left for work. That afternoon, she moved the cereal boxes, then the mixing bowls. I watched her do it while I was on a work call in the living room. She saw me looking and just smiled and kept going. When my husband got home, I told him. He talked to her again. She said the step stool was right there, and she didn't see why she should have to use it in her son's house. He told her it was our house, not just his, and she needed to stop. She went quiet and didn't move anything for 2 days. Then this morning, I went to make coffee, and the mugs were gone again. Not in the upper cabinet. Not in the cabinet under the counter where she'd put them before. I checked every single cabinet in my kitchen. It took me 5 minutes to find them in the cabinet above the fridge, pushed all the way to the back. Which makes no sense, because that's even higher than where we had them originally. I pulled one out and my back spasmed. I was done. She came into the kitchen and started making herself toast. I turned around and said if she couldn't stop rearranging my kitchen, she could get a hotel room. She froze. Then she started going on about how she was just trying to make things make more sense, and how this was her son's home too. And it was just a little reorganization, and we shouldn't all suffer just because I'm tall. Then she said I was heartless for expecting her to stay in a hotel during the holidays. My husband came in because he heard her voice getting louder. He looked uncomfortable, but he backed me up. He told her this was my home too, and if she wouldn't respect that, she'd have to leave. She went into the guest room, and I could hear her crying through the door. My husband stood in the kitchen, looking stressed. He didn't say I was wrong, but I could tell he hated this. She's still in there. Storie. To my wife texted her sister, I'm keeping the lake house in the divorce. It's practically mine anyway. She didn't know my family's lawyer had already transferred the deed to a family trust with me as sole beneficiary. Her attorney called mines, screaming about hidden assets until he saw the legal timeline. I, 38 male, found out my wife wants a divorce because I accidentally saw a text on her iPad while we were watching TV. The iPad we share for streaming, the one that's logged into her iCloud. Her sister Maxine's message was still on the screen. What about the lake house? Belle's response? Oh, I'm definitely keeping that. It's practically mine anyway. I've decorated it, planned all the renovations. He barely uses it. My lawyer says since we've had it the whole marriage, it's marital property. I just sat there, remote in hand, watching some cooking show, but not really watching anymore. The lake house? My family's lake house. The one my grandfather built in 1962. The one my dad proposed to my mom at. The one where we scattered my sister's ashes after the accident. Practically hers. I set the iPad down carefully. Didn't say anything. Belle was in the kitchen making tea, completely unaware. Here's what she didn't know. 6 months ago, my parents sat me down. Dad had just turned 70. Mom was dealing with early-stage Parkinson's. They wanted to do estate planning, get everything organized while they still could. The lake house Dad had said, "We want to protect it. Keep it in the family no matter what happens." They'd seen Belle's behavior. The way she talked about our lake house to her friends. How she'd started making decisions without consulting anyone. Changing locks, redecorating without asking. Acting like she owned it. My parents' attorney, Roger, who'd handled our family's legal stuff for 30 years, suggested a family trust. Transfer the property out of my parents' names. Put it in a trust with me as the sole beneficiary and trustee. Legal, legitimate, properly documented. We did it in March. Full appraisal, gift tax returns filed, trust documents recorded, all above board. The lake house wasn't marital property because I'd never owned it personally. My parents had owned it. Now the trust owned it. I just managed it. Belle had no idea. I picked up my phone and texted my lawyer, Helena. We'd been friends since law school. She'd done our wills when we got married 5 years ago. Need to talk. Wife wants divorce. She thinks she's getting the lake house. Helena called me 2 minutes later. The trust property? Yep. Oh boy. When are you filing? Didn't know I was filing until about 10 minutes ago. Want me to handle it, please? I filed first. Beat Belle by 3 days. Update 1. 2 weeks later, Belle lost her mind when she got served. You filed for divorce. I was packing a bag, moving into a hotel while this sorted out. Cleaner that way. Seemed like that's where we were headed, based on your texts with Maxine. Her face went pale, then read. You read my private messages. They popped up on the shared iPad, the one you were logged into while we were watching TV. That's invasion of privacy. Actually, it's called being in the same room as an unlocked device. But hey, let's talk about the lake house. What about it? You told Maxine you're keeping it in the divorce, that it's practically yours. She lifted her chin. It is. We've been married 5 years. I've put so much work into that place. Your parents barely even use it anymore. Belle, you don't own the lake house. You've never owned the lake house. My parents owned it. Now a family trust owns it. You have zero legal claim. That's not your lawyer can't just bore already did 6 months ago. All documented, properly filed. My parents transferred it to protect family assets during their estate planning. You want to call your lawyer and ask about how separate property trusts work. She grabbed her phone and left the room. I could hear her voice getting louder in the bedroom. 20 minutes later, she came back out. My attorney says, you're lying. Says, you probably hid assets, moved things around after deciding to divorce to keep me from getting what I'm entitled to. Cool. Helena's got all the documentation. Trust was established in March, 6 months before I even knew you wanted a divorce. Your attorney can review the timeline. This is shady. This is financial abuse. It's estate planning. My parents protecting their property. You were never entitled to their lake house, Belle. I put work into that place. I chose all the furniture. I planned the deck renovation. With their money on their property, you want reimbursement for your time. We can discuss reasonable compensation for interior decorating. How's 500 sound? She threw her phone at me, missed, hit the wall. My family is going to hear about this. I'm sure they will. She called her parents that night. I know because her dad called me the next day. What the hell is this about the lake house? Hi, Donald. It's in a family trust. Always was family property. Belle has no claim. She's put 5 years of her life into that relationship. She deserves an equitable division of actual marital assets. The lake house isn't one. Talk to your daughter's lawyer if you don't believe me. He can review the trust documents. Click. Belle moved in with Maxine. Her lawyer requested all financial documentation. Helena provided everything, including the complete trust file with dates, appraisals, and recorded deeds. Then things got interesting. Belle's lawyer sent a demand letter accusing me of hiding assets and fraudulent transfer. Said they'd be filing a motion to set aside the trust as a sham transaction designed to deprive Mrs. Whitmore of her marital rights. Helena's response was beautiful. The trust was established 6 months prior to divorce filing during routine estate planning by elderly parents facing health issues. All transfers properly documented, appraised, and recorded. Trust funded with separate property that was never marital asset. Client never had ownership interest to convey. No marital funds used. Your client had no reasonable expectation of inheritance or ownership.
Accusation of fraud is baseless and potentially sanctionable.
Suggest you review trust law before filing frivolous motions. Radio silence for a week. Then Belle's lawyer called Helena. Wanted to discuss settlement. Translation. He'd reviewed the trust documents, realized his client was wrong, and didn't want to get sanctioned for filing a baseless fraud claim. Update 2. 6 weeks later, the entitlement escalated in creative ways. First, Belle tried an end run. Showed up at the lake house with a moving truck. My parents were there for the weekend. Dad called me. Your wife is here with movers. Says she's collecting her belongings. What belongings? All the furniture she bought. The kitchen stuff. The deck furniture. Everything. I drove up there, 2-hour drive. Got there to find Belle directing movers to load my parents' furniture onto a truck. Belle, what are you doing?
Taking what's mine. I paid for all of this.
With whose money?
Mine. I pulled out my phone, opened our bank statements. Really?
Because here's a $4,800 charge to Pottery Barn from our joint account. Here's Tati $200 to William Sonoma. That's our money.
Marital funds. Exactly. Which means it's marital property. Which means it gets divided in the divorce.
You can't just take it.
Your family doesn't even want this stuff.
They hate my taste.
My mom walked out onto the deck.
Actually, Belle, we loved what you did with the place. But it's still our house, and you're trespassing.
Belle's face twisted. You old bag.
You never liked me. You put him up to this whole thing.
My dad stepped forward. You need to leave now before we call the sheriff. Fine, but I'm taking what I paid for. No, I said calmly. You're not. The furniture stays. We'll assess its value and credit you appropriately in the divorce settlement.
But you don't get to show up with a truck and steal from my parents. The movers looked uncomfortable.
One of them spoke up. Ma'am, if there's a dispute about ownership, we can't take anything. Liability issue.
Belle screamed. Actual screaming. Then she grabbed a lamp, a $400 lamp she bought with our joint account, and smashed it on the deck. There. Now nobody gets it. My dad already had his phone out recording. That's destruction of property, Mom said quietly. On our property, that's a crime, Belle. Belle stormed off. The movers apologized and left. I helped my parents clean up the broken lamp. Dad forwarded the video to Helena.
Helena forwarded it to Belle's lawyer with a note.
Your client committed vandalism on my client's family property. Video evidence attached. Suggest you counsel her regarding appropriate behavior during divorce proceedings. Belle's lawyer had to be so tired. But wait, there's more.
2 weeks later, I got a call from Roger, my parents' estate attorney. Someone filed a challenge to the trust.
Claims it was established fraudulently to avoid marital property division. Who? Your wife and her mother.
Her mother? Margaret Brennan.
She's claiming she was promised access to the lake house as part of your marriage agreement.
Says your parents verbally agreed she could use it whenever she wanted.
She's claiming promise estoppel. I actually laughed.
That's insane. There was no agreement. My parents never promised anything. I know, but they filed it.
Probably cost them $5,000 in legal fees for a claim that'll get dismissed in about 30 seconds.
Let me guess.
They're trying to pressure my parents into settling. Bingo. I called my parents. Did you hear about the trust challenge? Roger told us.
Dad said, we're not worried. There's no basis for it. It's harassment. Yes, but we can handle it. Don't worry about us.
Focus on your divorce. The hearing for the trust challenge was scheduled. Helena attended with Roger. Belle's lawyer didn't even show up. Apparently, he told them it was a bad idea, and they'd hired a different attorney for this.
The judge reviewed the motion, looked at the trust documents, looked at the timeline. Mrs. Whitmore, you're claiming this trust was established to defraud you of marital property. Yes, Your Honor. The trust was established 6 months before divorce filing. Do you have any evidence your husband knew you wanted a divorce at that time? He must have suspected. That's not evidence. Do you have any evidence the trust was established for any reason other than legitimate estate planning?
His parents were trying to keep me from getting what's rightfully mine. The lake house was never rightfully yours. It was separate property owned by his parents. They transferred it to a trust.
That's legal. Your husband never owned it personally, so it was never marital property. Motion denied.
And Mrs. is Whitmore. Filing frivolous claims wastes the court's time. Don't do it again. Helena said Belle cried in the hallway afterward. Her lawyer, the new one, withdrew from her case the next day. Back to the divorce. Belle's third lawyer, a guy named Paul, who apparently specialized in complex property division, requested a meeting. Helena and I sat down with him.
Belle wasn't there.
Paul slid a settlement proposal across the table.
They wanted the house, our marital home,
425K equity, her car, which was paid off, half my 401K, 78K, alimony of $3,000 a month for 5 years, and $25,000 for her pain and suffering. In exchange, I'd get my car, my personal belongings, and half my 401K. Helena didn't even pick up the paper. Counted. He keeps the house. It's in his name. Purchased before marriage with his down payment.
She gets her car, 401K, splits 50-50 per law, no alimony. They were married 5 years.
She works full-time as a dental hygienist making $62. No pain and suffering.
That's not a thing in no-fault divorce. She gets half the joint savings, 18K, and half the furniture she purchased with marital funds.
Appraised value, 12K, so $6 credit.
That's it.
Paul frowned. She's not going to accept that. Then we go to trial.
Judge will order roughly the same thing, but she'll pay more in legal fees.
Her choice. She feels she's entitled to more given her contributions to the marriage. Her contributions, she worked part-time for 3 years, then full-time for 2.
She paid roughly 30% of household expenses. My client paid 70%.
She's not entitled to more. She's entitled to exactly half of actual marital property, which is what we're offering. Paul left to discuss with his client. Update 3.
Final 3.
The divorce finalized 4 months after I filed. Took that long because Belle kept dragging her feet hoping I'd cave. I didn't. Final settlement. She got her car, half the 401K, $78,000, half the joint savings, $18,000, and $6,000 cash for her furniture contribution. Total $102,000. I kept the house, my car, my half of the 401K, and my sanity. No alimony, no lake house, no pain and suffering. The judge was clearly irritated by the whole thing. During the final hearing, he asked Belle directly, Mrs. Whitmore, do you understand that your in-laws' property was never marital property? I just feel like I should get something for all the work I put into their house.
That's not how property law works. You're getting a fair division of actual marital assets. Be grateful your husband's being reasonable about the house.
He could have argued for a bigger share given his larger down payment and contributions.
Do you accept this settlement? She looked at Paul. He nodded.
Yes, Your Honor. Good. Divorce granted. Outside the courthouse, Belle approached me. First time we'd spoken directly in weeks. I hope you're happy.
I'm not happy, Belle. I'm sad our marriage ended, but I'm relieved this is over.
You kept everything. I kept what was mine. You got what was legally yours.
That's how this works.
Your family poisoned you against me. No, you poisoned yourself by assuming you were entitled to things that were never yours. The lake house for starters. I loved that place.
You loved the idea of owning it. There's a difference. She started crying.
Can I at least visit?
Just sometimes.
No, Belle. It's my family's property. You're not family anymore.
She walked away.
Maxine was waiting in a car at the curb. I could see her glaring at me. Whatever. Here's what I learned through all this.
Entitlement is a hell of a drug. Belle genuinely believed she deserved my family's lake house because she decorated it.
She couldn't comprehend that ownership decoration. That legal title matters, that you can't just claim things because you want them.
Her family enabled her. Donald and Margaret could have told her she was being unreasonable.
Instead, they backed her ridiculous trust challenge, wasted $5K on a frivolous lawsuit, and encouraged her to fight for things she had no legal right to. And it cost her, not just money though. She spent probably $15 in legal fees chasing the lake house. It cost her time, energy, and whatever goodwill might have existed for an amicable divorce. We could have settled in mediation for roughly the same outcome without the drama. Instead, she fought for months over property she was never going to get.
The lake house remains in the family trust. My parents still use it.
I use it sometimes. My nephew loves it.
He learned to fish off that dock last summer.
Belle will never set foot there again. That's not spite. That's just reality. She's not family.
She made sure of that.
As for me, I'm doing okay. Dating again slowly. Therapy helped process the betrayal.
Not the divorce itself, but the realization that Belle cared more about getting stuff than about our actual relationship. The house feels emptier now, but it's mine.
I'm slowly making it mine again. New furniture, new paint, erasing her aesthetic choices.
Found out recently through mutual friends that Belle's living with Maxine.
Their relationship is apparently tense. Turns out Belle's not great at sharing space or contributing to household expenses. Shocking. She's also apparently dating someone new, a guy who owns a vacation rental business, several properties. Wonder if that's a coincidence. Some people never learn.
The trust challenge getting dismissed was the most satisfying part.
Watching Belle realize she'd spent thousands of dollars on a lawyer to file a motion that got rejected in minutes. Watching the judge tell her she was wasting the court's time.
That's not revenge. That's just consequences.
She bet everything on a legal theory that didn't exist. That somehow she was entitled to my family's property because she'd lived in our marriage. She lost that bet. Lost it publicly. Lost it expensively. And the lake house still there.
Still standing, still in the family.
Just like my grandfather intended. Just like my parents protected.
Just like it always should have been.
Belle's text to Maxine, it's practically mine anyway, sits in my phone screenshots folder. I look at it sometimes when I need a reminder. A reminder that assuming you're entitled to things doesn't make them yours. That legal ownership matters. That you can't just take what isn't yours, no matter how much you want it.
The divorce taught me something valuable.
Protect what's important before someone decides they're entitled to it. My parents did that with the trust.
I'm doing that now with everything else. No regrets, no guilt, just relief that I saw who Belle really was before we had kids, before we'd been married longer, before she could take more.
Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just letting someone face the reality they created.
Belle wanted the lake house.
She fought for it. She lost. That's justice, and honestly, that's enough.